friends, I am Poonam Mittal, professor in the Biochemistry Department, University of Allahabad. I will be presenting you with module number 13, Biological Basis of Gender, Perspectives in Women's Studies, of paper 12, Women's Science and Technology of the EPG Pathshala course in Women's Studies. Now, this module will tell you how innate differences between men and women arise, determined by sex at birth as a binary attribute, while gender is a construct based on social and cultural factors. The module will further discuss the biological basis of other attributes which are assigned to either men or women, for example, aggressive, competitive, emotional, sympathetic, docile, etc., and argue that these are not binary attributes, but they are of statistical nature with large overlap. So, some traits may be more frequent in one gender, but a large number of individuals in the other gender may also have them. The module will also discuss why such traits may have a high dependence on nurture. The issue will be discussed in the context of gender stereotyping, which could lead to creation of an unhealthy divide between the sexes. The module will also emphasize that the central role of the female in the reproductive process must not be undermined. Finally, the module will emphasize the role of gender studies in advocating equity of opportunity based on individual inclinations within the ambit of sex differences and reproductive requirements. And the basis is that we must promote harmony and not acrimony between the sexes. Now, what do we mean by sex and gender? Gender is a culturally and socially constructed difference between men and women. The World Health Organization says gender includes norms, roles, and relationships between groups of women and men. On the other hand, sex is the biological difference between men and women. It is innate and it is determined at birth. The cartoon can tell you a little more about this in a humorous manner. Now, the terms gender and sex, they are generally used interchangeably. While gender encompasses a range of physical, mental, behavioral characteristics pertaining to and differentiating between masculinity and femininity, gender issues differ in different cultures, while sex is a more definitive term. Everyone knows what a woman is and what a man is. So, they are determined by well defined, well understood and identifiable events, while gender remains fluid. Now, how is the sex of an individual determined? The diagram there shows the DNA, a section of the DNA molecule, a small portion, and each of the vertical lines, they indicate what are known as nucleotides. It is a length of nucleotides that tell us what function the organism has to perform in terms of genes. So, the DNA is basically responsible for all the genetic information in an organism. This is what helps build 3 billion it contains about 3 billion base pairs, and it is what builds a human from a 3 kg at birth to something like 70 kg or a little less for women at adulthood. So, now DNA is basically organized into chromosomes, and we have 23 pairs of chromosomes, which is 46 chromosomes, and every cell of the body has 46 chromosomes except the gametes. The gametes are the sex cells. So, the human body, which is about 3.9 trillion cells, is made up of cells which contain all the 46 chromosomes except the gametes, known as sperms in males and known as ovum in females. They possess only 23 chromosomes. So, when the ovum and the sperm fuse, there is creation of a zygote, and the zygote contains all the 46 chromosomes. So, you can see that 23 chromosomes come from the father and 23 chromosomes come from the mother. We can see in the diagram there, if you see it with a little detail, you can see the organization of the chromosome. Now, the zygote develops either into a male or a female, which depends only on the sperm. The sperm has an X chromosome, the offspring will be a female. If the sperm has a Y chromosome, the offspring will be male. Now, the ovum, it's very interesting that the ovum is the largest cell in the body. It has a diameter of 150 microns, and the sperm is the smallest cell in the body. It is thread-like, it has negligible width, and it's about 50 microns long. You can see in the diagram the difference between the two, the relative sizes of the sperm and the ovum. And both contain 23 chromosomes. The 23rd chromosome of the sperm is either X or Y, as I described in the last slide. And fertilization is the beginning of the new organism. The jumble up of the chromosomes leads to formation of a completely new set of 46 chromosomes, which is the driving force for the new baby, for all the characteristics that come to the new baby. Now, what is interesting here, why am I telling you all this? I would like to emphasize here that the investment of the mother is more than that of the father. The larger size of the ovum provides more nutrients to the new zygote, so the gender discrimination begins right there. The ovum also contains what are known as mitochondria. They are small powerhouses which are present in the ovum, but they are not present in the sperm. The interesting thing is that these mitochondria also contain some DNA. So, the ovum provides some additional information for the development of the offspring, which is not provided by the male sperm. And of course, everyone knows that the female carries the offspring in her womb for 9 months. So, obviously, her investment is more. Now, another major difference, which is again sex related, is that the human newborn is the most helpless newborn among all species. You can see in the two pictures, the first picture is that of little pups born to a female dog, and the pups are suckling the mother. They can walk, they can go up to the mother and suckle, while the human baby is totally dependent on the mother. It can neither move nor the only thing it can do is cry for milk. So, the helpless newborn, why did nature ordain that the human baby will be so helpless? This is a price that we pay for the defining characteristic of the human species, which is upright locomotion. We walk on 2 feet and a large brain. The result is that the mother has to nurture the baby with lactation and full time care and support for a fairly long period after the baby's birth. So, 9 months in the mother's womb, and another 9 months to 1 year till the baby starts walking outside. So, the mother's investment in terms of energy, in terms of resources is way more than that of the father, and this is biologically ordained. Now, the beginnings of gender. Death is the only certainty in the world. Everyone who is born must die. What survives after death is only our genes through our offspring, and therefore, it makes sense for every parent to intuitively safeguard one's offspring. This is the gene-centered view of evolution, which has been popularized by a science popularizer, Richard Dawkins, in his book, The Selfish Gene, and he's written several other books for those who are interested in these concepts. Now, the selfish gene is basically a concept of viewing genes as if they were the primary drivers and beneficiaries of the evolutionary process. It describes why more than two individuals are genetically related. The more sense at the level of the genes it makes for them to behave selflessly with each other. So, parents who are most closely related to the offspring, it makes sense for the parents to look after the offspring so that their genes will survive after their death. Now, the male invests less than the mother. So, basically what is required for the male intuitively, I am not talking of conscious purposes, but the male must invest in the offspring to ensure that the offspring he is protecting contains his genes. They are not the genes of somebody else. And the investment of the mother is total, much larger. So, nature has ordained that she will be the one who behaves most selflessly with the offspring. So, gender as a social construct finds its beginnings in this difference in investment in the offspring of the male and the female. Now, the consequences of the Y chromosome result in what are known as direct sex differences. Genetic sex, as we have already described at length, these are responsible for direct sex differences. For example, the internal and external reproductive anatomy, the external genitalia, the breast differentiation, the reproductive cells that the individual will contain, whether the person will have sperms or ova, the male sex hormones or the female sex hormones, which produce the estrogens or the male hormones, the androgens, the testosterones, and muscle mass, height, and fat distribution. These are some of the differences between men and women which are ordained by their genes. The most visible consequence of the direct sex differences are differences in the reproductive inputs, and if we go down in history and we see the prehistoric times where the environment was very harsh and unsafe, then foraging for food in hostile jungles was very difficult. The males had to protect their genes in the offspring, so they undertook the more dangerous roles while the women stayed at home. This was helped by their physical, sexually ordained muscle mass. So, and later the physically intensive agriculture, early industrial labor, and there was need to protect women during pregnancy and lactation and to provide a safe environment for the offspring. So, this led to a very desirable division of labor. The social repercussions of this division became undesirable. This is our conjecture. It led to sequestering of females because they couldn't move out, they were not exposed to the environment, to other social norms. So, they became more confined within the home, and their contributions to the family were less visible. Also, they were not the bread earners, they were not the economic strength of the family. And this, the conjecture here is that this must have gradually worsened their status in society. So, the biological differences in the reproductive functions of men and women, which is the most important function for humans for their continuation on earth, this is what must have led to the differences in the social differences in men and women. Now, there are also what are known as indirect sex differences. These are different from direct sex differences, and these are not always ordained by the XY chromosomes. They are not traceable to sexual dimorphism directly. These are what result from probably also the nurture of individuals. So, these are biological adaptations to the environment, and they have been quantified by empirical studies that they are of statistical nature. There is a range of physical, mental and behavioral characteristics which differentiate between masculinity and femininity, and these are often studied under gender differences. Some frequently use gender attributes. Men are aggressive, competitive, ambitious, unemotional, strong, decisive, poor in communicating feelings, focused, adventurous, while women have been given the epithets of soft, emotional, sympathetic, docile, gentle, talkative, contented, less competitive and good at multitasking. But these are not binary attributes, they are of statistical nature, which means that there will be individuals who have these traits and are male, or the female traits and are male, and the male traits and are female. These are basically some of the most important debates in gender studies. Now, there is need to explore whether there is a fundamental difference with regard to these traits. Are they linked to XY chromosome? Are they dimorphic? Are the brains of males and females different? Psychologists and behavioral scientists have given attributes. These have been investigated by neuroscientists, and they explore sexually dimorphic male and female brain structures. Some anatomical differences have been found, but they only exist as averages. There is a large overlapping variability. There is statistical frequency in one gender, but there will be a large number of individuals in one gender which will have these traits, while there will be a large number of individuals in the other gender who will not have these traits. So, the viewpoint is that in the dominated viewpoint in society has been the differences model. It is also the butt of most jokes between husband and wife, men and women, and it basically highlights the differences between males and females. This is a cartoon which describes this kind of gender difference, and I think it is self-explanatory. The gender differences model shows or suggests that the male brain is structured to facilitate connectivity between perception, coordinated action, have better motor and spatial abilities, while the female brain is designed to facilitate communication between analytical and intuitive processing modes and have superior memory and social cognition skills. This is now challenged by the gender similarities model, where cognitive variables such as reading, comprehension, mathematics, communication, social and personality traits, aggression, sexuality, which we have already discussed, these are assessed in terms of men and women. Men and women are found similar on most psychological parameters, with the exception of some motor behaviors such as throwing distance, some aspects of sexuality such as casual sex. The possibility exists that there are sexually dimorphic psychological adaptations, and that all psychological adaptations may not be monomorphic. Some other indirect sex differences, there is difference in the disease propensity, but again there is no clear genetic origin. The men have been found to be more prone to cardiac diseases than younger women, but the women lose this advantage after the menopause because the estrogen goes down. Women also seem to be more prone to osteoporosis, again that is postmenopausal, when their endocrine system becomes more like males, and women have been found to outlive men by up to 5 years. So, all dimorphic differences may have environmental factors in their etiology. We come to the important concept of nature versus nurture. There is considerable consensus among scientists that gender attributes are not universal, but they are statistical. They are the focus of investigation in biology and social sciences, and so-called gender attributes seem to have origins in genetics, which is nature, but they are to a large extent dependent on social conditioning or nurture. So, the versus basis is a faulty viewpoint. The brain is not a clean slate at birth. So, there is a lot of hard wiring that already is there, but there is a lot of hard wiring that comes up with nurture, and that is what contributes to the personality of the boy or the girl. The contribution of nature has been determined by sophisticated MRI scanning. Some dimorphic differences have been observed, but there is reasonable evidence that such differences are not hardwired. And now we have what is known as the similarity hypothesis. It's a very difficult issue to unravel the tangle between nature and nurture, because we have so much data and we do not know about the plasticity and the malleability which the environment gives to the individual. Now, gender awareness is reinforced in various ways early in life with stereotypes of color preferences, blue for boys, pink for girls, types of toys, etc. The influence of nurture is therefore often subconscious. It is also what the baby sees in the home. The mother is cooking, the father is going out, and things like that. So, any individual is an amalgamation of the influence of genetics, hormones, and the environment, which is nurture. The male attribute, now another problem in this concept is that male attributes are generally regarded as superior to the female attributes. Society is evolving. Tremendous changes in technology, contraception, mechanization, medical advances. So, the gender stereotyping requires a major overhaul. There are overinflated claims of gender differences, and these carry substantial costs for society as well as in relationships and in the workplace. So, society requires both masculine and feminine attributes for harmony. A large amount of time, energy, and resources of society are spent on the debate regarding the origin of gender differences, the nature-nurture conundrum, but an important academic debate for society is the question, what is required for a complete, peaceful, and prosperous existence of humankind? Do we want to highlight their differences, or do we want to ensure that society as a whole is harmonious? So, whether the attributes are gender centric, whether they have origins in genetics, biology, environment, this has little bearing on their essentiality. All these attributes are essential for a harmonious mankind, for a harmonious world, and traditionally designated male attributes, traditionally attributed female attributes, they are all required for the well-being of the human race. So, we have to come to the inescapable truth that the importance of reproduction for preservation of human race is the center of woman function. Society consists of both men and women, both are needed and both need to ensure respect for the attributes that help in this function. Occupations that are predominantly male have earned more respect. Household work, tasks associated with bringing up progeny, which are women-centric, these have been given secondary place in society. So, now the need is to ensure respect for attributes that help in this function. The trend is to undervalue many attributes that are considered feminine, and this trend is very dangerous. So, in the end, I would like to emphasize that society must endeavor to give equal respect to both kinds of attribute. In an ideal society, there is no place for gender inequality. There is no place for men and women to be adversaries. They are not fighting. They should not be fighting. Natural attributes are both are equally important for whether they arise due to nature or they arise due to nurture. Men and women are not two sets of humans at constant war against each other. Jokes abound highlighting stereotype gender attributes. These can increase the gender divide and influence impressionable young minds. So, all behavior that increases gender divide needs to be discouraged at all levels. Gender stereotypes should be avoided. Again, another reason for avoiding them is that there is so much statistical overlap. So, there will be little boys who will like to play with dolls or pretend cooking. There will be girls who like to play with guns or with more masculine mechanized toys. But this is society very often gives names to such children. These gender role reversals should not be discouraged. They should be encouraged to ensure that there is no gender discrimination in the home, in schools, and everywhere around us. Now, because of these overlapping gender characteristics, okay, so due to these this large overlapping of characteristics, we need to make we need to inculcate awareness among boys and girls. We also need to inculcate awareness in the equality, and I end by a quote by Professor Higgins in the iconic movie My Fair Lady, where he says, "Why can't a woman be more like a man?" which is which reeks of misogyny, but this has no place in modern society, and we hope for an truly equitous society with equal respect for males and females and no place for acrimony.